welcome to Thankfully Blessed and Rooted in the Word. We're back for our fifth day, and we are studying Daniel chapter 5. Um, we hope that you've enjoyed following along with us, kind of learning with us as we go. As always, if you think we're wrong, don't hesitate to tell us. That's the whole point, is to debate and not be yes men. Inside joke, sorry. Let's open with prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time to just dive into your word and to hear what you have for us, that you show us insights and that you let us see that next step that you want us to take. We ask that the words that are spoken be your words and not those of man, because we don't want to lead anyone astray. We want people to grow closer to you and have a better relationship with you, get to know who you are and why you've done the things you have. And the only way to do that is through your word. So we ask that you open up our hearts and our minds so that we can really focus on what you have provided for us to get to know you. We ask all these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. So, like always, I will read the ESV version and then we will dive into my NIV version and the study notes that I have. Chapter 5. King Belshazzar made a great feast for 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine in front of the 1,000. Belshazzar, when he tasted the wine, commanded that the vessels of gold and of silver that Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken out of the temple in Jerusalem be brought, that the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. Then they brought in the golden vessels that had been taken out of the temple, the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his lords, his wives, and his concubines drank from them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Immediately the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace, opposite the lampstand. And the king saw the hand as it wrote. Then the king's color changed, and his thoughts alarmed him. His limbs gave way, and his knees knocked together. The king called loudly to bring in the enchanters, the Chaldeans, and the astrologers. The king declared to the wise men of Babylon, whoever reads this writing and shows me its interpretation shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or make known to the king the interpretation. Then King Belshazzar was greatly alarmed, and his color changed, and his lords were perplexed. The queen, because of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banqueting hall, and the queen declared, O king, live forever. Let not your thoughts alarm you or your color change. There is a man in your kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, were found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father the king, made him chief of the magicians, enchanters, Chaldeans, and astrologers. Because an excellent spirit, knowledge, and understanding to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve problems were found in this Daniel, whom the king named Belshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. Then Daniel was brought in before the king. The king answered and said to Daniel, You are that Daniel, one of the exiles of Judah, whom the king my father brought from Judah. I have heard of you that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom are found in you. Now the wise men, the enchanters, have been brought in before me to read this writing and make known to me its interpretation. But they could not show the interpretation of the matter. But I have heard that you can give the interpretations and solve problems. Now if you can read the writing and make known to me its interpretation, you shall be clothed with purple and have a chain of gold around your neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let your gifts be for yourself, and give your rewards to another. Nevertheless, I will read the writing to the king and make known to him the interpretation. O king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar your father kingship and greatness and glory and majesty. And because of the greatness that he gave him, all peoples, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would, he killed, and whom he would, he kept alive. Whom he would, he raised up, and whom he would, he humbled. But when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened so that he dealt proudly, he was brought down from his kingly throne, and his glory was taken from him. He was driven from among the children of mankind, and his mind was made like that of a beast, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. He was fed grass like an ox, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High God rules the kingdom of mankind and sets over it whom he will. And you, his son, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this. But you have lifted up yourself against the Lord of heaven, and the vessels of his house have been brought in before you, and you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which do not see or hear or know. But the God in whose hand is your breath, and whose are all your ways, you have not honored. Then from his presence the hand was sent, and this writing was inscribed. And this is the writing that was inscribed: Mien, Miena, Tekel, and Parsin. This is interpretation of the matter. Mien, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and Daniel was clothed with purple. A chain of gold was put around his neck, and a proclamation was made about him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed. And Darius the Mede received the kingdom, being about 62 years old. What was that?
Sounds like it was a prophecy to me.
Okay.
God basically just told him what was going to happen, and then it happened.
Fair enough. All right. So this occurs in about 539 BC, the last night of Babylon's fall under King Belshazzar, son or co-regent of Nabonidus. I can't say that.
Nabonidus?
I don't know. Nabonidus. Babylon was at its height of wealth, but declining in stability. The Persian king Cyrus the Great is poised to conquer Babylon without a battle, as it's described in Isaiah 45:1 and historical records. Belshazzar held a lavish feast for 1,000 nobles. He used temple vessels taken from Jerusalem to drink wine, a severe desecration of sacred objects. Well, welcome to real life. Husband called on the cell phone, had to pause. Not 100% sure where we were, but we'll get back in this. I think I was talking about Belshazzar held a lavish feast for 1,000 nobles, used temple vessels taken from Jerusalem to drink wine, a severe desecration of sacred objects. This act symbolized spiritual arrogance, a public demonstration of power over God's people and his temple. The fulfillment of Jeremiah 25:11-12, Babylon's 70-year dominance ending, and shows the immediate consequences of pride, sacrilege, and ignoring God's sovereignty. So this is written in Aramaic. It's addressing Gentile rulers. Perez is a Aramaic word. It is used in verse 25 for divided, numbered, or weighed. It appears in the handwriting on the wall. Mien, Takal, Upharsin, which is verses 25 through 28, are Aramaic words interpreted by Daniel Mien meant God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. Tekel means you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. And Perez Upharsin, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians, which he does say when we read it. So I guess the interpretation was good. Belshazzar, Bel protects the king. Ironic, as he trusted a false god while God judged him. All right, let's dive in. So, my notes say 66 years had elapsed since the events of Daniel 1, which tells of Nebuchadnezzar's first strike against Jerusalem in 605 BC. Nebuchadnezzar died in 562 after a reign of 43 years. His son, Awel-Marduk, ruled from 562 to 560. His brother-in-law, Neriglissar, reigned 4 years from 560 to 556. After a 2-month reign by Labish-Marduk in 556, the Babylonian Empire continued from 556 to 539 under the command of Nabonidus, or Nabonidus, I don't know. Belshazzar was the son of said Nabo whatever. He reigned alongside his father from 553 to 539. So, 62. He would have been alive during Nebuchadnezzar's reign, but I don't know that he would have remembered it. Archaeologists have discovered Belshazzar's name on several documents. He ruled with his father, staying home to administer the affairs of the kingdom, while his father tried to reopen trade routes taken over by Cyrus and the Persians. Belshazzar was in charge of the city of Babylon when it was captured. So, let's dive into chapter 5, verse 1. King Belshazzar gave a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. While Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets that Nebuchadnezzar, his father, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives and his concubines, might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives and the concubines, it's stuck, hang on, drink from them. And they drank the wine. They praised the gods of gold and silver and of bronze, wood, and stone. So, what's happening?
Sorry, I was thinking. I guess he's having a feast. He's using what would it be? The things that people have honored God with.
The treasures of the Israelites.
Yeah, the treasures of the Israelites to eat and drink out of, which I'm sure is making God not very happy with him.
Oh, we're about to find out.
Right. And then he's honoring false gods too. I mean, that's what.
Well, he's praising them for all these things, and here he is drinking out of the stuff God provided.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall, near the lampstand in the royal palace. You did catch that. It's just the fingers.
A human hand.
It's kind of like, what is that from the Addams Family?
Thing,
the hand, just.
Yeah, but do you ever think it might have been bigger? Because, like, no one's gonna, I mean, I guess some people could have.
You think if a hand was on the wall, we wouldn't see it?
Hold on. He said, feast for 1,000 of his lords, and like there would have been tons of them. Are you thinking if you're in a humongous party, you're just gonna notice this hand on the wall? I mean, but I don't feel like you're gonna notice this
lampstand. So that has to have significance, and I don't know the historical significance of the lampstand. But, they don't have the light overhead like we do.
True.
So they're going to have lampstands around. It may not have been real well lit. And all of a sudden, this starts moving.
That's true. I mean, yeah, if a human hand just started writing on the wall all by itself, I'd be like, what did you do?
The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. What was the hand using to write?
That's a good question.
That's not even told us. Hand and writing. So was it like it was magic? Like what was going on? I mean, it drew his attention. I think it would draw everybody's attention.
It's a hand. It draws your attention.
Yeah,
if it's a hand, period, it draws your attention. Let's be honest.
How can you say the Bible's not interesting? I mean, we've had men thrown in fire. We've had a hand writing on a wall. The king summoned the enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. Then he said to these wise men of Babylon, "Whoever reads this writing and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom."
I want to know what the significance about the purple is all about.
Purple means royalty, I think. Don't hold me to that. My notes say Nabonidus, the father, was first in command as king, and Belshazzar, his son, was second. The person who could read the writing would be given third place in command, which was the highest position and honor that Belshazzar could offer.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
All right. Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. So King Belshazzar became even more terrified, and his face grew more pale. His nobles were baffled.
Oh, I think we've heard this before.
What?
Wise men coming in, can't give you the answer.
Give us an answer.
I mean, that's basically
they're the
happened in every single chapter almost, but one.
They're the smartest dumb people out there. So although the writing on the wall contained only 3 simple words in Aramaic, a language understood by Babylonians, the people could not determine its prophetic significance. God gave Daniel alone the ability to interpret the message of doom to Babylon. No matter how great the reward offered, the wise men of the kingdom couldn't interpret the message because they lacked God's wisdom. Daniel did not rush into the banquet hall with the others. His loyalty was to God, not money. So these words were, when the first time I read through it, I thought maybe the words were Hebrew words, and that's why they didn't know them. But this is saying that they were Aramaic, so they would have been able to read them.
I think we just couldn't understand what it meant.
Well, Mian, Tekel, Parson.
Yeah, but I mean, what I mean is, like, I don't think they understood the meaning of it, why it was writ on the wall. Wrote on the wall, not writ.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you think about this. We already kind of they already should have known this was coming, though.
Why?
It says so in the first one with, not necessarily this kingdom was, like, at this time it was going to happen, but it said Babylon's time would fall and another kingdom would take over in the first chapter.
The first dream.
Yeah, the first dream with the statue.
But it doesn't give you years.
Yeah, of course not. But
so
yeah, I mean, they should be prepared for it.
So yeah, but I think the problem is they were the kings were of power, and they didn't think it could be during their reign.
Right.
All right. Back to the book. So, verse 10. The queen, hearing the voices of the king and his nobles, came into the banquet hall. "May the king live forever," she said. "Don't be alarmed. Don't look so pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In the time of your father, he was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. Your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners." So, again, they're saying that he has the spirit of the holy gods. They don't understand that he only has the power of the God, the one and only true God.
That happens a lot with these people, doesn't it?
Well, it's because I don't think they can wrap their head around the fact that
Well, I mean, they
there is a God, not all of their gods.
They have so many gods. It's hard for them. And so many other cultures have so many gods. I think it's hard for them to heads around that. Didn't it say on your paper that whatever this weird named guy, I can't remember what name was. He's what?
Nabonidus?
Yeah, that
His
one.
dad?
Wasn't that his dad?
Who?
What's the king we're talking about right now?
Belshazzar?
Belteshazzar's.
Yes,
But then this one just said
father because it would have been like his grandfather.
Okay, because this one's saying it's Nebuchadnezzar,
Right.
your father. And also another thing is, do you think it's the queen was his mom?
Ah,
See,
so
that I was kind of wondering.
I was just getting there. My study note says the queen was either Nabonidus's wife or the wife of one of his predecessors, possibly even of Nebuchadnezzar. She was not Belshazzar's wife because his wives were with him in the banquet hall.
Right.
So she could have been Nebuchadnezzar's wife.
So it could be grandma.
Yeah, but they didn't call them grandma and grandpa back then.
Right.
Because even Abraham was the father of men.
Right, it wasn't.
So, and I know they didn't go by the Hebrew lineage, but I mean, they called him father because he was the father of the father of the father. All right. So then we are at.
Is it 12? Made him chief
of the enchanters, yeah. He did this because Daniel, whom the king called Belshazzar. There's so little difference between the two names, Belshazzar.
I know, right? They're not that much different.
So, was found to have a keen mind and knowledge and understanding, and also the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing means. So Daniel was brought before the king, and the king said to him, "Are you Daniel, one of the exiles my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard that the spirit of the gods is in you, and that you have insight, intelligence, and outstanding wisdom. The wise men and enchanters were brought before me to read this writing and tell me what it means, but they could not explain it. Now I have heard that you are able to give interpretations and to solve difficult problems. If you can read this writing and tell me what it means, you will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around your neck. And you will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom." Now this I like. Then Daniel answered the king, "You may keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means." Why do you think that's important?
Because Daniel didn't need anything else. To him, he had everything he needed. He had God. That's all we need. I mean,
yeah.
What's the point of being the third high ruler? You don't need to be
But as the third high ruler, if both the king and him die, wouldn't he be in charge?
I guess, but I don't think that's what Daniel wanted nor cared about.
So my thought was that he didn't want the gifts. He wanted him to realize he was doing it because it's what God wanted. But I mean, we don't know. My notes say the king offered Daniel beautiful gifts and great power if he would explain the writing, but Daniel turned him down. Daniel was not motivated by material rewards. His entire life had been characterized by doing what was right in God's eyes. Daniel was not showing disrespect in refusing the gifts, but he was growing older and knew the gifts would do him little good. Besides, being the third highest ruler in a kingdom Daniel knew was about to be destroyed was not exactly motivating. I hadn't thought about that either.
Yep, but doesn't it say? No, we're going to get to this point eventually. But in the end towards the end, after Daniel interprets it, doesn't they make him the third?
Now, as soon as he interprets it, he goes ahead and does it, yeah.
Yeah.
It says Daniel wanted to show that he was giving an unbiased interpretation to the king. Doing what God wants should be our first priority. All right, so I just think that's pretty cool. He's like, just keep your gifts. I don't want them. Your Majesty, the Most High God, gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty and greatness and glory and splendor. Because of the high position he gave him, all the nations and peoples of every language dreaded and feared him. Those the king wanted to put to death, he put to death. Those he wanted to spare, he spared. Those he wanted to promote, he promoted. And those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was deposed from his royal throne and stripped of his glory. He was driven away from the people and given the mind of an animal. He lived with the wild donkeys and ate grass like the ox, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, until he acknowledged that the Most High God is sovereign over all kingdoms on earth and sets over them anyone he wishes. But you, Belshazzar, his son, have not humbled yourself, though you knew all this. Instead, you have set yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought to you, and you and your nobles, your wives, and your concubines drank wine from them. You praised the gods of silver and gold, of bronze, iron, wood, and stone, which cannot see or hear or understand. But you did not honor the God who holds in his hand your life and all your ways. Therefore, he sent the hand that wrote the inscription. So my notes say, as King Belshazzar would have known Babylonian history, so he was familiar with the story of how God had humbled Nebuchadnezzar. Nevertheless, Belshazzar's banquet was a rebellious challenge to God's authority. He took the gold goblets from God's temple and drank from them. No one who understands that the Most High God rules over the whole universe should be foolish enough to challenge him. Often kings would kill the bearers of bad news, but Daniel was unafraid and told the truth. He had been steadfast in living and telling the truth since his youth. In this case, he knew Babylon would be overrun and Belshazzar would be killed. Daniel still used this opportunity to reveal the sin of Belshazzar and his companions, pointing them to God and urging them to humble themselves before him. Unlike Nebuchadnezzar, however, Belshazzar did not humble himself.
Yeah, but Nebuchadnezzar didn't at first either.
He had 12 months, though.
But he still didn't.
But he might have for 12 months.
Yeah, but in here it says, when his heart was lifted up and his spirit was hardened, so that he delayed proud.
Right.
So he was.
Remember, Daniel told him to
Right.
change his ways. For all we know, he did for a little while. 12 months later is when he was power hungry and all about him again. And God's like, that's it. You're a beast. And it wasn't till 7 whatever's passed, because we don't know what it was, that he looked up and he's like, okay, you are the one and only God. You are the high, most powerful being.
You know what? I just think it's weird that both of them must have like really messed up to not. God was wanting to give him another chance.
Maybe his heart was so hard he couldn't.
Maybe. That's possible too, I guess.
It says Belshazzar was using the gold goblets from the temple for his party, and God condemned him for his act.
That probably didn't help.
We must not use for sinful purposes what has been dedicated to God. There could be that there was just a lot there. You know, he had a hard heart. He was using God's treasures to kind of continue to sin. And God's like, I'm done. I said that that this empire would end. It's time. He's not gonna change. I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. So, this is the inscription that was written. Mien, mien, tekel, parsin. Here's what those words mean. Mien, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. Then, at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in purple, a gold chain was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. So, the writing on the wall was a message for all those who defied God. Although Belshazzar had power and wealth, his kingdom was totally corrupt, and he could not withstand the judgment of God. God's time of judgment comes for all people. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's time. The Medes and Persians joined forces to overthrow Babylon. This event was predicted in the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had in Daniel 2. It was represented in the statue's silver chest and arms. All right, so verse 30. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. So Darius and his soldiers entered Babylon by diverting the river that ran through the city and then walking in on the dry riverbed. So there must be a note somewhere in a historical document or maybe in a different book of the Bible that says that that's how he did it, because this chapter doesn't tell us that. This Darius is not to be confused with Darius the First mentioned in Ezra, Haggai, and Zechariah, or Darius the Second, the Persian, mentioned in Nehemiah. Darius the Mede is named only in the book of Daniel. Other records name no king between Belshazzar and Cyrus. Thus, Darius may have been one appointed by Cyrus to rule over Babylon as a province of Persia, or another name for Cyrus himself, or for his son Campus, or a descendant of Xerxes. Just like Daniel has more than one name, some of these other people do too, so we don't exactly know who Darius is, but Darius is the one at the age of 62 is now taken over the kingdom of Babylon. So I wonder what happened to the other king, though.
He wasn't in his kingdom at the time.
I know, but I mean, I don't know. That's just weird. But that whole storyline's weird. Like from Nebuchadnezzar to Belshazzar, it's like the Bible doesn't really talk about the number of people in between. The study notes do, which mean they got it from a document of history from back then. Because as we read it, we would think Nebuchadnezzar was Belshazzar's father, right?
True.
Because we didn't know about this one and this one and this one.
This is true.
All right.
Guess it just wasn't one of those important things to put in the Bible.
It didn't really matter, did it?
Not really.
The story's still the same. There was a hand that just appeared and wrote on the wall 4 words.
And it still went with the defeat of Babylon. So
yeah, Babylon's gone no matter who was the ruler.
Right.
All right. Anything you want to talk about? Any questions you have? Any thoughts?
Nope.
All right. Well, that is it for us for this week. We hope you enjoyed Daniel 1 through 5. Tomorrow we'll just do a recap and talk about what we're doing for the next week, with it being Thanksgiving. May you have a blessed evening. Good night.